There's plenty of ways to play through Skyrim, from being a goon-sesh wizard at the Taco Bell to being a roid-raging lunatic fighting dragons barehanded. But what about sending mudcrabs into an active combat zone? Our run was immediately blessed by this horse who thought he was the Dragonborn. Chose a Breton as my starting race and forced him to take copious amounts of fentanyl, because I wanted him to achieve the physique of a champion. After one of the kind guards resuscitated me with Narcan, I ultimately decided to name myself Mr. Krabs. Let Rayloff carry my old disease-ridden ass through this area, basically a pacifist run. OBS decided to fuck me over harder than the IRS, and didn't bother recording anything until after I'd already killed the dragon at the watchtower, but this is where the real game began. But just because you have a couple mudcrabs doesn't mean that your army is complete. The fighting's pretty simple. Sit back, hide, summon in your mudcrabs. They'll stand on business, do what they need to, and for the most part it's pretty simple. However, there is some downsides to using them. Sometimes the mudcrabs do show their low IQ, because if the ground's uneven, they won't fight the person you're trying to attack. They'll just kind of sit there, follow them, and get the shit beat out of them. I did have a second spell called Herald the Heroic, and instead of having small mudcrabs, I can have large ones. And they're fucking crazy. They have a lot of health and do a good bit of damage. But after I fought this dragon with them, I decided to not use them because it just felt like cheating. Started up the steps to High Hrothgar, but just like my senile old grandpa, I had to go do something else. And I had to go test my mudcrabs out on a fucking grizzly bear to just see what it would be like. They will run away. I will give the mudcrabs that if they take a little too much damage and they're low on health, they'll just kind of start running. But just like Germany in World War II, you fill them full of meth, throw them back in there, and they're all good to go. The notorious troll on the way up to High Hrothgar gave me and my crusty boys a run for our money because in a couple swipes, he'd already could flatline one of my mudcrabs. But if you just kind of sit there and summon them in like cancer cells, you can't really stop that, and eventually you win the war of attrition. Discovered Argnir had a weird fetish of people screaming at him, and he also had another one of watching people get screamed at. Esbern sent me on a magical quest to go find his holy kazoo. Instead, I traveled the Whiterun because fuck him, I gotta go shop. Sold some shit to Bellathor till he had no more money to give me, and waited outside of his shop for a full day, standing there like a statue. I pissed a couple of guys off when I asked for some change, and they immediately started attacking me, but my mudcrabs were right there to start fighting back against my aggressors. My mudcrabs and the Whiterun Guard ended up handling the situation because the cultists were very ill prepared to handle it. Played a prank on a carriage driver by asking him for his services and then just going to the place I needed to for free. Arrived at Ustengrav because I had to teach a few people a lesson on actual conjuring mastery. His reanimated corpses stood no chance against my magical mudcrabs. And you can be one of those lame losers who's using a gun during the zombie apocalypse, but I'ma use crabs. And just like a fat lady walking into a McDonald's with her stupid fat kids, I threw them into the playpen, sat my ass down, and looked through the menu on what I could snag and take home with me. That ugly little bug reared its head again when a restless jogger started beating the shit out of my crabs, and just because there were some vines on the ground, they just wanted to follow him around, look at him, and watch him beat the shit out of them. Like every great dad at a barbecue, I tried to act younger than I was, but ended up shooting my knees straight up into my fucking skull. Took the absolute loser old man way down, discovered that Skyrim has audiobooks and that they just go directly into your brain. Some stupid single mom already took the kazoo that I was gonna buy from the Toys R Us, so I started robbing her ancestors and messing with their ashes. On my way over to the stupid bitch's address, I discovered that she had a 7-Eleven, and you know I had to stop in and get me a week old hot dog. Walked my way on over to this bitch's house. Spent longer than I should have waiting in the wrong room before I ultimately decided to go track her down. I told her that I was the Dragonborn, but she called bullshit. I'm just a homeless old man. Discovered a man who'd been crushed by a giant boulder, very much like when you see one of those fat people on a little rascal, taking a corner too hard and killing a kid underneath them. The fight against Soloknir was nothing too special. As soon as I summoned my boys, he took off. And now it's just a war of attrition. You wait for him to land, summon your crabs again, and eventually, your crabs and Delphine will kill him. Went back to Whiterun. Spent a solid 3 weeks going inside Bellathor's shop, leaving, waiting for a day or a couple days, and then going back in to sell more shit. Delphine told me that I had to enter the Thalmor embassy to go rescue an informant and figure out what they knew. Gave Melbourne a free strip show as I unclothed in front of him, and took my old ass on over to the Thalmor embassy, all snazzy and dressed up. Delphine could change my clothes, but she couldn't change my stink because I thought I broke the game when the elf that was supposed to take my fucking letter wasn't there. This bitch jump scared me by trying to yell at me for not giving her one. Sent my crabs into mortal combat against a wizard at the Home Depot. The guards outside who were trying to get me to leave the premises couldn't do shit because I kept running away as I let my crabs fight them all. Must have been tripping off the perks a little too hard when I tried to hide in plain sight, but they turned around and see my ass immediately. Discovered that my crabs are defective guard dogs because this guy was looking for me and they didn't do shit about it. My crabs got into combat because they wanted Melbourne's dead corpse to snack on, but the elves wanted it as well. This troll thought he was a badass until I started summoning my crabs to attach to his nipples while he tried to stop me. Back in Riverwood, Delphine informed me of yet another old homeless man who was living in the sewers. Talked to Brynjolf about finding him, but he said help me first before I help you. This stupid woman wouldn't mind her own business while I was trying to stick my hands down into the back of this man's pockets. She made me fail the first time, so I had to reload a save. This time around, I sent my crabs out to distract her and hold her in place while I shoved a ring into this man's pocket, and it worked out great. Traveled my old ass down into the sewers to go find this other old man. My mudcrabs made 2 new friends as soon as we entered, and I watched them have their little play date by killing the other 2. Made it through no issue and entered the Ratway vaults. Challenged the elves down here to keep their sanity, as I kept raining mudcrabs down from above them like hellfire. Told Esbern the IRS was outside and that we needed to leave immediately because his tax dollars were at stake. Told Esbern that we had to make a quick pit stop just before we head back to Riverwood because I have a house call to make to some old bitch. Attempted to make her have a panic attack when I started shoving my hands into her pocket, stole her cash and tried to steal a book, and while she ran away, my mudcrabs tracked her down. She ain't gonna get out. Finally went on my way over to Riverwood. Esbern told us of a new McDonald's that was opening, and I have to let my mudcrabs go play with all the little kids in the play pit, but fuck all that walking shit. I didn't want to travel with them anywhere. All I need is my crabs. So, we took our fat asses on over to Rorikstead. On the way over to Karthspire, Alduin decided he was going to summon a dragon, but I was hotter shit than he was because the flies were around me more, so I summoned my crabs and war broke out. This dragon started acting really strange because I discovered that I can place my crabs right onto his forehead and they can sit there while he's flying around and just smack the shit out of him for however long they need to. He fought as well as he could, but no one can stand against the mud crab tide. The Forsworn camp was something I was actually kind of excited about. I was going to be able to send my boys in there, let them do their work, but instead, I turned around and this giant fucking blood dragon decided to land right behind me and try to fuck up my entire day. A panic attack later, after almost dying there, I just kinda ran around, shat out a couple mudcrabs where I could, hid, and rinsed and repeat until everybody died. The dragon also attacking the Forsworn helped me out as well. I had absolutely no intention of fighting this dragon, so I shuffled my old ass on inside the Karthspire. One of the mudcrabs must have took steroids cause he launched a fucking force sword across the room. Tried to amputate my hand but chickened out halfway through and only ended up slitting my wrist. Esben read us off a story. Maybe a menu? I don't fucking know, I really wasn't paying attention to his stupid ass. Finally traveled back to High Hrothgar to give them the kazoo. The old men got mad at me, so they started screaming. My mudcrabs just kinda sat and watched the show. I told Argnir that I forgot how to breathe, and he kindly showed me how to again. OBS fucked me one more time, but this is the last one. We just skipping on over to Blackreach. The only challenge that my mudcrab faced inside the dwarven ruins were the dwarven centurions, but they really even weren't a challenge, it was just because they had so much health. But they wouldn't attack my mudcrabs for some reason I don't understand, so they just sat there for a while. I played with Grandma's life support buttons, hitting switches and listening to dingy dings while she suffocates. Got my reward in the form of her death report called the Elder Scroll. On my way outside, I fast traveled back to the throw of the world and totally didn't have a dementia moment when I forgot where the fuck it was. Ever expected that a fucking piece of paper could open a wormhole back into the past for me to look at some words? I listened to my old great-great-grandfather say a bad word, so I learned it. And then immediately reset it at the dragon called Alduin. He got really mad for some fucking reason, so I summoned my crabs and got ready for war. Having the ability to force Alduin to take back shots from a couple of crabs on the ground is the entirety of this fight. It's not too bad, not too hard. It was actually just pretty fun. It was the most fun I ever had fighting a dragon. But eventually we did get him and he just sat down. Parthenax, the invisible dragon who couldn't give a shit to land to talk to me, told me that I had to go to Whiterun and trap a dragon. Balgriff told his favorite homeless person no, because, it's his house. I told Arnie that Balgriff was being a bitch, and he told me to go find new friends to play with that wasn't him. I chose General Tullius because he's a sad old fart just like me, except I have crabs. Jarl Ulfric, because he has no friends, no one likes him, and he has no choice but to accept my friendship or die. And before I knew it, Arnie had already started the rich kids and the poor kids fighting. He's like the worst host, don't ever invite him to do anything. We all had a civil meet, of course, and it also made me want to die. Balgriff stopped being a little bitch and let me trap a dragon in his own home. Me and my crabs were chilling on Balgriff's porch until Big Bird from Sesame Street decided that he wanted to murder a guy. Watched him fall to his death. Probably was the worst way to go. Odahviing got trapped like an absolute fucking idiot for a dragon who's supposed to be really old and wise. He's pretty fucking stupid. Convinced him that if I could use him as a taxi to reach the portal to Sovngarde, it would be pretty damn cool, and off we went. As always, this place is an absolute fucking hellhole. I ran when I could, shit grabs on the floor, and watched war break out between Draugr and Mudcrab. Ran inside as soon as my mudcrabs were finished. Let my little boys have their fun by bullying a Draugr overlord to death and verbally abusing him as they did it. Forced my old man to run like he was 20 again whether or not his health could handle it. My mudcrabs told soon that he was a pussy and that he should fight them, and I watched as war broke out between the two. Watched soon have a panic attack when two mudcrabs started beating the shit out of him, and I got to level up my conjuration by just sitting there spawning them like they're hotcakes, but eventually he did surrender. Inside, I talked to Dumbass 1, 2, and 3, because the only friends that I really need are the ones that I can generate from thin air. We all yelled at the sky for Alduin to come fight us so we could finally save the world. But they were wrong, I just wanted to get the cheese. Just like the last time, You wait for Alduin to land with Dragon Rend, summon your crabs, and it's pretty easy. Disappointingly, crabs don't count as a final killing blow, so I had to spit on him. It must have been months traveling with crabs, cause that shit melted him, and I watched him as he imploded from the inside out from my pure rotten stank. With that, we return to Tamriel, and I have beaten Skyrim with only mudcrabs. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe if you want to. Leave a comment, let me know what y'all thought of the video. I've boosted the audio from my older videos, so maybe this sounds a little better. Anyway, thank you guys so much.